My dog can find your daughter. Marcus Thorne's hand froze over his phone. The screen glowed with missed calls and a text from his security chief. Nothing yet. He stood at the edge of the stone terrace, back rigid as iron. The black gates of his estate hung open, a violation he would never normally permit. Beyond them, the Halloween festival pulsed with orange lights and children's laughter. 15 minutes ago, Lily had been spinning in the garden, her princess dress catching the autumn sun. One phone call. He had turned away for one phone call. Now his men swarmed the streets. Radios crackled. Police sirens wailed closer. None of it was bringing her back. Marcus turned slowly. A girl stood behind him, 6 years old, dark hair and a messy ponytail, white dress stained with mud at the knees. She gripped a red leash in both hands like a lifeline. At the other end sat a German shepherd, young, barely 10 months, oversized paws, ears that couldn't decide whether to stand or flop, amber eyes watching Marcus with unsettling focus. The housekeeper's daughter. He'd seen her around but never learned her name. What did you say? His voice came out harder than intended. Shadow can find Lily. The girl didn't flinch. She knows her smell. Marcus almost laughed. I have 12 men searching right now. Police K9 units are on the way. Trained dogs. Professional handlers. I know, sir. No tears. No trembling. Just dark eyes steady as river stones. Shadow plays with Lily every day, the girl continued quietly. She knows how Lily smells like the pink soap in her bathroom and the cookies she sneaks from the kitchen. Marcus's chest tightened. The pink soap. His late wife had chosen it. Lily refused to use anything else. How did this child notice such things? He looked at the dog. Shadow sat perfectly still, not straining or panting, just waiting. Those amber eyes tracked his every movement with strange patience. She's a puppy, Marcus said flatly. She's 10 months, and she doesn't give up. His phone buzzed. Another text. K9 delayed. Estimated time of arrival. 25 minutes. 25 minutes. Lily had already been gone 15. She could be anywhere by now. In a car. In someone's hands. Marcus looked at the girl again. At her impossible calm. At the dog, who sat like she was made of patience itself. What does she need? The girl's eyes flickered with surprise. Then resolve. Something that smells like Lily. Something strong. Her teddy bear. She's had it since she was 2. The girl nodded. That would work. Marcus raised his phone. Marco. Lily's room. Brown teddy bear on the bed. Now. Minutes later, Marco appeared with a ratty bear, fur matted from years of being clutched through nightmares. Marcus held it toward Shadow. The dog rose, pressed her nose against the worn fur, inhaled deeply once, twice. When she lifted her head, something had changed. The puppy's softness vanished, ears rigid, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the open gate. What's your name? Marcus asked suddenly. Rosie, sir. Rosie Harper. If your dog finds my daughter, she will. Rosie gripped the leash tighter. Shadow doesn't lie, and she doesn't quit. Marcus stared at her. In 36 years, he had learned to read people like open books. He saw no deception in this child, only faith pure and unshakable. He didn't believe in miracles. He believed in power and planning. But watching his daughter disappear into the October darkness had stripped him of everything except desperation. Then show me, he said quietly. Shadow pulled toward the gate. Rosie followed without hesitation. Shadow's nose pressed against the teddy bear's matted fur. 1 breath, 2, 3. Marcus watched the transformation happen in seconds. The puppy vanished. In its place stood something primal. Shadow's ears snapped upright. Her nostrils flared in rapid pulses. Every muscle beneath her dark coat pulled taut like cables under tension. The amber eyes that had seemed soft moments ago now burned with focus, locked on something invisible, something only she could sense. Marcus felt his skepticism crack. Just slightly. Just enough. She has it, Rosie whispered. She has Lily's scent. Before Marcus could respond, footsteps echoed from the kitchen entrance. He turned to see Elena Harper rushing across the terrace, apron still tied around her waist, flour dusting her forearms. She had been preparing dinner when the chaos erupted. Now her face was pale, her eyes wide with the particular terror of a mother who cannot find her child even if that child was not her own. Rosie, Elena's voice cracked. What are you doing? Come inside right now. She reached for her daughter's arm, ready to pull her away from whatever madness was unfolding. But Marcus raised a hand, not threatening, not commanding, just a gesture that said, wait. Elena froze. Her eyes met his, the cold, calculating gaze of the man who signed her paychecks, who ruled this estate like a kingdom. who she had carefully avoided for 6 months. "Your daughter offered to help," Marcus said quietly. "I'm letting her try." Elena's mouth opened to protest. A dozen objections crowded her throat. This was dangerous. This was foolish. Her 6-year-old had no business being involved in Shadow pulled hard at the leash. Rosie didn't stumble. She braced her feet and leaned into the tension, moving with the dog as naturally as breathing. No hesitation, no fear. "Mom." Rosie glanced back, her voice calm. "Shadow knows where Lily is. I have to go." Elena looked at her daughter, really looked. At the steady grip on the leash, at the quiet certainty in those dark eyes, at the way she stood beside the massive shepherd as if they were two halves of the same creature. When had her little girl become this? "2 of my men will follow," Marcus said to Elena. "They won't interfere. They'll just watch." He signaled to Marco, who nodded and gestured to another guard. Both fell into position several paces behind. Shadow surged forward. Rosie ran to keep pace, her small legs pumping, her muddy dress flapping against her knees. The dog's nose swept the ground in quick arcs, sampling the air, filtering through 1,000 scents to find the one that mattered. They passed through the iron gates. The festival noise swelled, music thumping, barkers shouting, children squealing. The street was a river of costumes and candy and chaos. Marcus followed, his polished shoes crunching on fallen leaves. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that he should wait for the professionals, that he was wasting precious minutes on a child's fantasy. But he kept walking. At the intersection ahead, Shadow stopped abruptly, her head swiveled left, then right, nose twitching like a radar dish, searching for a signal. The festival's main entrance lay to the right, tents and lights, and hundreds of potential witnesses. Shadow turned left, toward the quiet street, toward the old church, toward the shadows. Marcus frowned. "That's wrong. The festival is the other direction." Rosie shook her head slowly, never taking her eyes off Shadow. "Shadow doesn't make mistakes, sir. The crowd is that way. If Lily followed the music, she didn't follow the music." Rosie's voice was soft but absolute. "She followed something else, and Shadow knows what." The dog pulled again, straining toward the empty street where streetlights flickered and autumn wind scattered dead leaves like whispers. Marcus stood at the crossroads, literally and otherwise. Every rational thought told him to go right, toward the noise, toward the logical path. His men were searching there. The police would focus there. But Shadow faced the darkness, and the girl with the muddy dress hadn't been wrong yet. Marco stepped closer. "Sir, your orders?" Marcus looked at Rosie, at the unwavering trust between her and the dog, at the thin red leash that connected them like an unbreakable thread. "We follow the dog," he said finally, and they walked into the shadows together. Shadow moved through the darkness like she was born for it. She led them down the quiet street, past weathered brownstones with jack-o'-lanterns flickering in windows. Her nose never lifted from the invisible trail only she could see. They cut through the old churchyard, weaving between crooked headstones and overgrown hedges. Marcus's polished shoes sank into damp grass, but he didn't slow down. His eyes stayed fixed on the dog ahead. The festival emerged behind the church, not the bright main entrance, but the back area where workers stored supplies. Canvas tents sagged between metal poles. Cardboard boxes formed uneven towers. Extension cords snaked across muddy ground like orange veins. The smell hit Marcus like a wall. Popcorn, caramel apples, barbecue smoke, cotton candy. 1,000 scents tangled together in the autumn air. Any dog would lose focus here. Any dog would chase the food, distracted by the overwhelming assault on its senses. Shadow didn't waver. Her pace quickened, her body lowered, shoulders rolling with predatory purpose. The leash pulled taut as Rosie jogged to keep up, her breath forming small clouds in the cooling air. They passed a generator humming loudly, skirted around stacked folding chairs, ducked under a drooping banner that read, "Happy Halloween," in dripping orange letters. Then Shadow stopped. One bark. Sharp, certain, not frantic or confused, just a single sound that cut through the festival noise like a knife through silk. An announcement. Shadow sat down, her amber eyes fixed on a pile of cardboard boxes stacked against a storage tent. Her tail swept once across the ground. Marcus pushed past Rosie. His heart hammered against his ribs as he rounded the boxes. Hands already reaching Lily sat huddled in the narrow gap between cardboard and canvas. Her princess dress was gray with dust. Her blonde curls had escaped their ribbons. Tear tracks cut pale lines through the dirt on her cheeks. In her arms, she clutched a plastic pumpkin bucket empty except for a few pieces of candy. She looked up, her eyes widened. "Daddy?" Marcus couldn't speak. His throat closed around words that wouldn't form. He dropped to his knees in the mud, expensive suit forgotten, and pulled his daughter into his arms with a force that surprised even him. She was so small, so fragile, so alive. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered into his shoulder. "I heard the music, and there was a clown with balloons. He said there were more prizes back here. But then he left, and I couldn't find the way back, and shh." Marcus pressed his lips to her hair. Strawberry shampoo and dust and sweat. The most beautiful smell in the world. "It's okay. You're okay. I've got you." His hands trembled. Marcus Thorne, who had stared down rivals, negotiated with killers, built an empire on ice-cold control, couldn't stop his hands from shaking as he held his 5-year-old daughter. Behind him, Rosie stood quietly. The red leash hung loose in her grip. Shadow sat beside her, panting softly, tongue lolling in what almost looked like satisfaction. No celebration, no demand for praise, just a small nod, as if finding lost children was simply what Tuesdays were for. Marcus rose slowly, Lily cradled against his chest. Her arms wrapped around his neck, and she buried her face in his collar. He turned to face Rosie. The girl looked back at him, calm, patient, waiting. Mud caked her shoes. Her white dress was ruined, and yet she stood there like a soldier who had completed her mission and expected nothing in return. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He had commanded rooms full of dangerous men. He had delivered speeches that moved millions of dollars. He had spoken words that ended lives and began empires. But standing before this 6-year-old girl with her quiet eyes and her loyal dog, Marcus Thorne found himself completely, utterly speechless. "What do you say to someone who just handed you back your whole world?" Rosie seemed to understand. She gave another small nod and turned toward Shadow, scratching gently behind the dog's ear. "Good girl," she murmured. "You did good." Shadow's tail wagged once, and somewhere in Marcus's chest, something he had kept frozen for years began to crack. The walk back was silent. Lily had fallen asleep against Marcus's shoulder, her small fingers still clutching the plastic pumpkin. Her breathing came soft and steady, each exhale a tiny reminder that she was safe. She was here. She was his. Marcus carried her like she weighed nothing, like he would carry her across oceans if he had to. Behind him, Rosie walked quietly with Shadow. The dog's pace had slowed now, the hunting tension gone from her body. Just a tired puppy again, tongue hanging loose, tail swaying gently. Marco and the other guard followed at a distance, speaking into their radios, calling off the search. Standing down the police, Marcus heard none of it. His world had shrunk to the weight on his shoulder and the heartbeat against his chest. They passed through the iron gates. The terrace lights blazed ahead. Elena stood waiting. The moment she saw Rosie, she ran. Her apron flew behind her as she crossed the lawn, and then she was on her knees, pulling her daughter into a fierce embrace. "Don't you ever run off like that again." Her voice cracked between anger and relief. "Do you understand me? Never." "Mom, I'm okay. You scared me half to death. Rosie Harper." But even as she scolded, Elena's hands moved across her daughter's face, her shoulders, her arms checking, confirming, making sure every piece was still in place. Marcus stopped beside them. Elena looked up, suddenly aware of his presence. She started to rise, to apologize, to explain the automatic responses of someone who had spent 6 months being invisible in this house. "Thank you," Marcus said. Elena froze. "Your daughter did what my entire security team couldn't do." His voice was quiet, stripped of its usual command. "She brought Lily home." Elena blinked. In 6 months of working here, Marcus Thorne had never spoken directly to her. She had been hired through an agency, interviewed by Marco, paid through wire transfers. The man himself remained a distant figure glimpsed at the end of hallways, heard through closed doors. She had preferred it that way. No questions about her past. No explanations needed about why she had arrived with nothing but 2 suitcases and a daughter. No mention of the man she had fled in the middle of a rainstorm, her wrist still bruised under her sleeve. Marcus didn't ask. She didn't tell. A silent agreement that suited them both. Until now, Elena started, but footsteps interrupted her. The front door swung open. Vanessa Cole descended the porch steps like a model on a runway. Her red dress hugged every curve. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves. Diamond earrings caught the porch light as she approached, her heels clicking against the stone. "Oh, thank goodness." Her voice dripped with sweetness. "I heard the commotion. Is Lily all right?" She reached for the sleeping child, but Marcus shifted away, subtle, instinctive. Vanessa's smile flickered. Her eyes moved to Elena, then to Rosie, then to the German shepherd, sitting obediently at the girl's side. So the rumors are true. Vanessa's tone remained pleasant, but something cold crept into it. Lily was found by the housekeeper's dog? My dog, Rosie said quietly. Her name is Shadow. Vanessa looked down at the child as if noticing an insect on her shoe. How charming. The word hung in the air like poison. Elena pulled Rosie closer, her jaw tightening. She knew this type of woman. Had seen the way Vanessa moved through the house like she already owned it, the way she looked at the staff as if they were furniture. Marcus studied Vanessa for a long moment. His face revealed nothing. Then he turned to Rosie. From now on, he said, Shadow stays inside the house. She sleeps where she wants, goes where she wants. Vanessa's smile froze. Marcus, darling, you can't be serious. A dog running loose in the... That dog found my daughter. Marcus's voice cut like a blade. She's earned more than a spot on the floor. He walked past Vanessa without another glance, carrying Lily toward the door. Vanessa stood perfectly still. The sweetness drained from her face, leaving something sharp and calculating beneath. Her eyes found Elena, and in that single look, Elena understood everything. She had just become an enemy. She pulled Rosie tighter against her side. Shadow pressed against their legs, a warm and steady presence. The mansion doors closed behind Marcus, and in the October darkness, Vanessa Cole began to plan. Vanessa Cole stood at the window of her apartment, watching the city lights flicker below. 2 years. She had invested 2 years in Marcus Thorne. Every dress chosen to catch his eye, every word calculated to hold his attention, every smile practiced in the mirror until it looked effortless. She had learned Lily's favorite cartoons, memorized her bedtime routine, pretended to care about stuffed bears and princess costumes. 2 years of patience, 2 years of strategy, 2 years of slowly, carefully positioning herself to become Mrs. Thorne. And now this, a housekeeper, a nobody, a woman with messy brown hair and flour-dusted aprons, and not a drop of makeup on her plain face. Vanessa had noticed the change 6 months ago, when Elena Harper arrived. At first, she had dismissed her, just another servant, invisible and irrelevant. But then she started watching Marcus. She saw the way he paused at the kitchen doorway in the mornings, watching Elena prepare breakfast. The way his eyes followed her movements not with lust, but with something worse. Curiosity. Interest. She noticed when Marcus asked about Elena's daughter. The little one seems tired today. Is she feeling all right? Marcus Thorne, who never remembered his own staff's names, asking about a servant's child. Small things. Tiny shifts. But Vanessa had built her life on reading small things, and tonight had been the final confirmation. The way Marcus looked at that little girl with her muddy dress and her ridiculous dog, the way he thanked Elena, spoke to her directly, acknowledged her existence for the first time, the way he had walked past Vanessa like she wasn't even there. Her phone glowed on the nightstand. She picked it up, scrolled through contacts, and found the number she needed. A man answered on the 3rd ring. Yeah, I have a job for you, Vanessa said, her voice cold and smooth. Derek Harper, find him for me. Who's that? Elena Harper's ex-husband. She paused, letting the information settle. I need to know everything about him. Where he lives, what he does, what he wants. This gonna cost extra. Money isn't a problem. Vanessa smiled at her reflection in the dark window. Just find him. She hung up and turned back to the city lights. Everyone had a weakness. Everyone had a past they were running from. And she would find Elena's. In the mansion kitchen, warm light spilled across the tile floor. Elena stood at the sink, hands submerged in soapy water. The dinner dishes clinked softly as she scrubbed, her mind drifting in the peaceful quiet. At the small table behind her, Rosie sat drawing with colored pencils. Her tongue poked out in concentration as she sketched what looked like a dog with comically large ears. Shadow lay beneath the table, her head resting on her paws. But her amber eyes stayed open, fixed on the window above the sink. Elena glanced at her daughter's peaceful face and felt something loosen in her chest. 6 months. They had survived 6 months without him. Some nights, she still woke in a cold sweat, phantom pain throbbing in her wrist. She still flinched at loud noises, still checked the locks 3 times before bed. 3 years of marriage to Derek Harper had taught her body to expect violence the way others expected morning coffee. The bruises she had hidden under long sleeves, the excuses she had made to neighbors. The night she had finally grabbed Rosie and run into the rain, her wrist swelling purple where he had twisted it. But that was behind her now. He couldn't find them here. She was safe. A low growl broke the silence. Elena turned. Shadow had risen to her feet, hackles lifting along her spine. Her amber eyes locked on the dark window, a rumble building in her chest. Shadow? Rosie looked up from her drawing. What's wrong? The dog didn't respond, just stared at the blackness beyond the glass. Rosie walked to the window, pressing her face close. Shadow doesn't like someone out there. Elena's blood turned cold. She crossed the kitchen in 3 quick steps and pulled Rosie back. Stay away from the window, sweetheart. She reached up and yanked the curtain closed, but not before she saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the property, just beyond the glow of the security lights. Watching. Then it turned and melted into the night. Elena stood frozen. One hand gripping the curtain, the other pressed against her racing heart. Shadow continued to growl, long after the shadow had disappeared. 2 weeks passed. The Halloween decorations came down. November crept in with gray skies and cold mornings. Life at the Thorne mansion returned to normal, except nothing was quite the same. Marcus Thorne had developed a new habit. Every morning, instead of taking breakfast in his study like he had for years, he carried his coffee to the kitchen table. He told himself it was more convenient. Closer to the back exit, better light for reading the morning reports. He almost believed it. The truth sat across from him in the form of 2 little girls and a German shepherd. Lily and Rosie had become inseparable. They moved through the house like a single creature with 2 heads, whispering secrets, sharing crayons, finishing each other's sentences. This morning, they sat on the kitchen floor with Shadow between them. Rosie held a dog treat above Shadow's head. Sit, she commanded. Shadow sat. Now watch, Lily. You have to say it like you mean it. Dogs can tell when you're not sure. Lily nodded seriously, her blonde curls bouncing. She took the treat from Rosie and held it up. Sit, she squeaked. Shadow was already sitting, but she sat harder somehow, her tail sweeping the tile. Both girls erupted in giggles. At the stove, Elena flipped pancakes. The smell of butter and maple filled the kitchen. She wore her usual uniform simple blouse, hair pulled back, no jewelry, nothing special, and yet Marcus couldn't stop watching. The way she moved with quiet efficiency, the way she smiled at the girls without them seeing, the way she hummed softly when she thought no one was listening. He caught himself and looked away. Took a sip of coffee he didn't taste. You're the best sister ever, Lily announced suddenly. Marcus's cup froze halfway to his lips. Rosie's cheeks flushed pink. I'm not your sister. You're like a sister. Lily shrugged with the simple logic of a 5-year-old. That's the same thing. It's not Shadow thinks so too, right, Shadow? Shadow barked once, tail wagging. Case closed. Marcus set down his cup. His chest felt strange, tight, but not painful. Warm in a way he hadn't felt since Catherine died 3 years ago. He watched Lily laugh, really laugh, her whole body shaking with joy. When had she last laughed like that? When had the house last felt like something other than a fortress? Elena turned from the stove, plates in hand. Her eyes met his for just a moment. She looked away quickly, but not before he saw the question there. The uncertainty, the careful distance she maintained like armor. She was afraid of him, Marcus realized. Not afraid, he would hurt her. Afraid of something else. Something she wouldn't name. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to be afraid, but he didn't know how. He had spent so long being the man everyone feared that he had forgotten how to be anything else. The front door opened. Heels clicked against marble. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway, merrily wrapped in a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than Elena's monthly salary. Her smile was perfect, bright, practiced. Good morning, everyone. She scanned the scene, Marcus at the table, the girls on the floor, Elena at the stove, a family portrait she hadn't been invited to join. Something flickered behind her eyes, there and gone. Lily, darling! Vanessa bent down, arms open. Come give me a hug. Lily glanced at Rosie first, then walked over slowly and offered a polite, distant embrace. That's my girl. Vanessa straightened, her gaze sliding to Elena. The pancakes smell wonderful. You're so good at domestic things. The words were sweet. The tone was not. Elena said nothing, just turned back to the stove. In her coat pocket, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She slipped it out, glancing at the screen. One message. Found him. He's ready to cooperate. Her smile widened. Well, she said brightly, I should let you all eat. Marcus, darling, call me later? Marcus nodded absently, his attention already drifting back to the girls. Vanessa walked out, heels clicking a sharp rhythm against the floor. No one noticed the ice in her eyes, or the way her fingers curled around the phone like a weapon. The bar smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. Derek Harper sat in a corner booth, his third whiskey sweating on the table in front of him. His eyes were fixed on his phone screen, where 2 faces stared back at him. Elena, His wife, his property, and the girl, his daughter, his blood. The photo had been taken from a distance, both of them standing in front of massive iron gates, a mansion rising behind them like something from a magazine. Elena wore clean clothes. The girl looked healthy, well-fed. They looked happy. Derek's grip tightened until his knuckles went white. Enjoying the view? He looked up. Vanessa Cole slid into the booth across from him, looking painfully out of place in her designer coat and perfect makeup. She wrinkled her nose at the smell but didn't comment. Instead, she pushed a thick envelope across the sticky table. Derek didn't touch it. "What's this?" "Motivation." Vanessa smiled, cold and beautiful. "She's living in a mansion worth $12 million, eating gourmet food, sleeping in silk sheets, while you rot in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like mold." Derek's jaw clenched. She had no right to leave. No, she didn't. "That's my wife, my kid. They belong to me." "Of course they do." Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dropping to honey. "I'm not asking you to do anything extreme. Just remind her. Show up. Let her know you haven't forgotten. Make her nervous enough to run." Derek's eyes narrowed. "Run where?" "Away from the mansion. Away from Marcus Thorne." Vanessa's smile sharpened. "That's all I need. Once she's gone, everyone's happy. You get your family back. I get what I want." She tapped the envelope with one manicured nail. "There's $2,000 in there. Another $3 when the job's done." Derek grabbed the envelope, thumbed through the bills. More money than he'd seen in months. "She goes grocery shopping tomorrow," Vanessa continued. 2:00. "The supermarket on 5th. She brings the kid and that stupid dog." Derek's face darkened at the mention of the dog. "Just say hello," Vanessa purred. "That's all. Let her remember who she belongs to." The supermarket was bright and ordinary. Elena pushed her cart through the produce section, checking items off her mental list. Apples for Lily, vegetables for dinner, the good bread Marcus preferred. Rosie sat in the cart, legs dangling, humming a song she had learned from Lily. Shadow walked beside them, her leash wrapped around Elena's wrist. Marcus had insisted the dog come along extra protection, he said. Elena had thought it was overkill. Now, she was grateful. She turned into the cereal aisle and froze. A man stood at the far end, tall, unshaven, wearing the same leather jacket he'd worn the night she ran. Derek. Her heart stopped, then slammed back to life at triple speed. "Mommy?" Rosie's voice seemed far away. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Elena couldn't speak, couldn't move. 3 years of survival instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs had turned to stone. Derek smiled. That smile she knew so well, the one that looked friendly to strangers but promised pain in private. He walked toward them slowly, hands in his pockets, casual as a Sunday stroll. "Elena." His voice was silk over broken glass. "Baby, I've missed you so much. Stay away from us." The words came out as a whisper. "Is that any way to greet your husband?" He kept coming. "And look at my little girl. Rosie, sweetheart, don't you miss your daddy?" Rosie shrank against Elena's chest, her small hands gripping her mother's shirt. 10 feet away. 8. 6. Shadow moved. The dog stepped forward, positioning herself between Derek and the cart. Her hackles rose like a dark wave. A growl rolled from her chest low, steady, unmistakably lethal. Derek stopped. His smile flickered. Elena remembered suddenly he had always hated dogs, had kicked strays in the street, had flinched when neighborhood pets came too close. Shadow's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The growl deepened. Derek took a step back, then another. "Call off your mutt," he hissed. Elena found her voice. "Leave. Now." Something ugly flashed in his eyes, but Shadow's growl rose in pitch, and Derek retreated another step. "This isn't over," he whispered. "You think you can hide from me? I found you once. I'll find you again. You and my daughter." He backed away slowly, eyes fixed on Shadow until he reached the end of the aisle. Then he turned and disappeared. Elena stood frozen for a long moment, her heart threatening to crack her ribs. Rosie was crying softly against her chest. Shadow didn't stop growling until long after Derek's footsteps faded. And even then, her amber eyes stayed fixed on the spot where he had stood watching, waiting, ready. Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She gripped the steering wheel the entire drive home, knuckles white, breath shallow. In the back seat, Rosie sat silent with Shadow pressed against her side, the dog's amber eyes watchful. The groceries sat forgotten in the trunk. She parked in the mansion's garage and sat there for a long moment, trying to force her heart back to normal. trying to compose herself before walking inside. She would say nothing. This was her problem, her past, her burden to carry. But when she stepped through the kitchen door, Marcus was waiting. He stood by the counter, coffee cup in hand, reviewing something on his phone. He looked up as she entered, and his eyes narrowed immediately. What happened? Not a question, a demand. Elena opened her mouth to lie. Nothing. Rosie's daddy came, Rosie said from behind her. Elena closed her eyes. Shadow didn't like him. Rosie continued quietly. He said mean things to Mommy. Marcus set down his cup. His gaze moved from Rosie to Elena, reading her the way he read enemies across negotiating tables. Sit down, he said. Tell me. Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to insist it was personal, not his concern, but something in his voice left no room for argument. She sat at the kitchen table, hands folded to hide their trembling, and she told him. About Derek. About 3 years of marriage that felt like prison. About the first time he hit her a slap across the face for burning dinner. About how the slaps became punches, the punches became kicks, the kicks became something darker. About the long sleeves in summer, the sunglasses indoors, the lies she told everyone, including herself. About the night she finally ran Derek's hands around her throat, Rosie screaming in the corner. The moment Elena knew that if she stayed one more day, she would die. She spoke without tears. She had cried them all out years ago. Marcus listened in absolute silence. His face revealed nothing, but his eyes grew darker with every word, something cold and dangerous gathering behind them. When she finished, the kitchen felt very quiet. His name, Marcus said softly. Derek Harper. He used to work construction. How did he find you here? I don't know. Elena shook her head. I was so careful. I changed cities, used cash, didn't contact anyone from before. I don't understand how Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed. Marco. I need everything on Derek Harper. Former construction worker. Criminal record, current address, known associates. 2 hours. A pause. And from now on, Elena and Rosie don't leave this property without security. 2 men minimum. He hung up before Marco could respond. Elena stared at him. You don't have to. You work for me. Marcus cut her off, his voice flat and final. That means you're under my protection. Both of you. He paused. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the stone. And your daughter saved mine. That's a debt I don't forget. Elena felt her throat tighten. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process a man like Marcus Thorne offering protection instead of demanding something in return. Thank you, she whispered. Marcus nodded once, then turned and walked toward his study, phone already at his ear. Midnight found Marcus alone in his office, the desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. A file lay open before him. Derek Harper's face stared up from a mugshot, eyes mean, jaw stubborn, the look of a man who blamed everyone but himself. Domestic violence charges. Dropped when Elena refused to testify. Gambling debts. Unemployment. A string of bar fights and restraining order violations. A pathetic, broken man. But one question burned in Marcus's mind. Elena had hidden well, changed her name, covered her tracks. There was no reason Derek should have found her, not unless someone told him where to look. Someone who knew Elena worked here. Someone who wanted her gone. Marcus leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing in the darkness. He would find the answer. And when he did, there would be consequences. Vanessa's plan was falling apart. She paced her apartment, phone pressed to her ear, listening to Derek's excuses. The dog, the security, Elena refusing to run. Worse, Marcus had doubled protection. 2 guards now followed Elena everywhere. He was pulling her closer instead of pushing her away. You're useless, Vanessa hissed into the phone. She hung up before Derek could respond. Time for a different approach. If Elena wouldn't leave willingly, she would leave broken. The contact was a man named Sal. He drove trucks for a living and did other things for money. Vanessa had used him before, small jobs, quiet jobs, nothing that left evidence. I need an accident, she told him over coffee in a diner far from the mansion. A car crash, nothing fatal, just enough to put someone in the hospital. Sal stirred his coffee. Who? The housekeeper. She drives a silver Honda, picks up her daughter from school every afternoon at 3. And the kid? Vanessa paused. Try not to hurt the kid, but if it happens, she shrugged. Accidents happen. Sal named his price. Vanessa paid half up front. 3 days later, Elena drove home from Rosie's school. The silver Honda hummed along the quiet streets. Rosie sat in the back seat. telling Elena about her day, a drawing she made, a song they learned, how Lily would love the new game she invented. Shadow lay across the seat beside her, head on paws, amber eyes half closed. Elena smiled at her daughter in the rearview mirror. These moments, ordinary, peaceful, safe, still felt like miracles. She approached the intersection on Miller Street. Green light. She pressed the accelerator. In her mirror, a black truck appeared from nowhere, moving fast, too fast. Elena's instincts screamed before her mind caught up. She yanked the wheel right as the truck slammed into the Honda's rear corner. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The car spun once, twice before crashing against the curb. Elena's body moved without thought. She threw herself backward, reaching for Rosie, shielding her daughter with her own flesh, as the world turned to chaos. Shadow barked frantically, scrambling for footing. Then silence. Elena opened her eyes. Pain exploded through her left shoulder. Something warm trickled down her forehead. Her vision swam. Rosie. Her voice came out broken. Rosie, baby mommy. Rosie was crying but conscious, strapped safely in her seat, Shadow pressed against her, licking her face, whimpering. Elena tried to move. Her shoulder screamed in protest, dislocated, maybe worse. But Rosie was alive. Rosie was okay. That was all that mattered. Marcus arrived before the ambulance. He stepped out of his black SUV while the paramedics were still loading Elena onto a stretcher. His face was stone, but his eyes burned as he scanned the wreckage, the crumpled Honda. The glass scattered like diamonds across the asphalt. Marco appeared beside him. Police are calling it an accident. Driver of the truck fled the scene. Marcus walked to the intersection, studied the skid marks on the road. The truck had accelerated into the crash. No braking, no attempt to stop. This wasn't an accident, Marcus said quietly. Marco's jaw tightened. You think I think someone wants Elena gone? Marcus turned back toward his car. Find that truck, find the driver, and find out who paid him. The hospital room was quiet. Elena lay in the bed, shoulder bandaged, forehead stitched, painkillers softening the edges of her awareness. Rosie slept curled in the chair beside her, Shadow lying on the floor beneath. Marcus sat in the corner, watching. He had been there for 3 hours, hadn't spoken, hadn't left. Elena turned her head toward him. You don't have to stay. I know. Silence stretched between them. Who wants to hurt you, Elena? Marcus asked softly. She shook her head, wincing at the movement. I don't know. I don't have enemies. I'm nobody. Marcus studied her face, pale, bruised, exhausted. You're not nobody, he said quietly. And someone disagrees. He looked at Rosie sleeping peacefully, at Shadow keeping watch even in her dreams. Someone close was targeting Elena. Someone who knew her schedule, her car, her route. The pieces were forming a picture Marcus didn't like. But when he found the truth, and he would, there would be no mercy. 2 weeks after the crash, Elena returned to work. Her shoulder still ached beneath the bandage. The stitches on her forehead had dissolved, leaving a thin pink scar. But she refused to rest any longer. I need to be useful, she told Marcus when he suggested more time off. I need to work. He didn't argue. He understood that kind of stubbornness, the need to move forward, to prove you weren't broken. Life at the mansion resumed its rhythm. Elena cooked. Rosie and Lily played. Shadow patrolled the hallways like a furry guardian. And Vanessa watched, waited, planned. The scream echoed through the mansion at noon. Marcus was in his study when he heard it high-pitched, theatrical, coming from the guest room where Vanessa kept her things. He found her in the doorway, hand pressed to her chest, tears streaming down her perfect face. It's gone, she sobbed. Marcus, it's gone. What's gone? My mother's necklace. The diamond pendant she left me before she died. I kept it in my jewelry box, and now, her voice cracked. It's not there. Marcus's jaw tightened. When did you last see it? Yesterday. I wore it to dinner, remember? I put it back in the box last night. And now someone, she broke off, fresh tears spilling. He ordered a search. Every room, every drawer, every corner of the mansion. 30 minutes later, Marco appeared in the doorway. His face was grim. We found it, sir. Where? Marco hesitated. In Elena's room, bottom drawer of her dresser. The living room felt like a courtroom. Elena stood in the center, face pale as paper. Her bandaged shoulder trembled. Beside her, Rosie gripped her hand, eyes wide with confusion. Shadow sat at their feet, body tense, amber eyes fixed on one person in the room. Vanessa. I don't understand, Vanessa cried, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. I trusted her. We all trusted her. And she stole from me? I didn't take it. Elena's voice was steady despite her pallor. I swear on my daughter's life. I never touched that necklace. Then how did it end up in your drawer? Vanessa's voice rose. Did it walk there by itself? I don't know. Someone must have. Someone? Who? Vanessa laughed bitterly. This is ridiculous. She's a thief, Marcus. Fire her. Call the police. Do something. Rosie pressed closer to her mother. Shadow's growl deepened low, continuous, unmistakably hostile, aimed directly at Vanessa. Marcus stood by the window, silent, watching. He watched Vanessa's tears too perfect, too timed. He watched Elena's fear real, raw, desperate. He watched his daughter Lily hovering in the doorway, confusion clouding her small face. And he watched Shadow, the dog who had found Lily when no one else could, the dog who sensed Derek in the supermarket, the dog whose instincts had never been wrong. That dog was growling at Vanessa. Everyone out, Marcus said quietly. Vanessa blinked. But now, his voice left no room for argument. Vanessa retreated with a wounded expression. Marco escorted Rosie and Shadow to the kitchen. The room emptied until only Marcus and Elena remained. Silence stretched between them. Did you take it? Marcus asked. Elena met his gaze directly. No flinching. No looking away. No. Her voice was firm despite the tremor in her hands. I may be poor, I may be desperate, but I am not a thief. I have never stolen anything in my life. Marcus studied her face, the exhaustion, the fear, the dignity that refused to bend. He thought about the car crash that wasn't an accident, about Derek appearing out of nowhere, about the pattern forming in the shadows. Someone wanted Elena gone, and that someone had access to the mansion. I believe you, he said. Elena's composure cracked. Her eyes glistened. Why? The evidence. Evidence can be planted. Marcus turned to the window, gazing at the grounds below. But instincts don't lie. Instincts? He glanced back at her. Your dog hates Vanessa, has since the first day, and that dog has never been wrong about anyone. Elena stared at him, speechless. Go back to work, Marcus said quietly. This conversation never happened. And Elena, she paused at the door. Don't trust anyone in this house, except me. Marcus trusted no one. It was the first rule of survival in his world. Trust meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant death. But he had trusted Vanessa, or at least, he had stopped watching her closely. A mistake he wouldn't repeat. The day after the necklace incident, Marcus installed hidden cameras. Not in the obvious places where security already monitored. In the blind spots, the back hallways, the service entrances. And he waited. The night came 3 days later. 2:14 a.m. The mansion slept in darkness. Shadow lay curled at the foot of Rosie's bed, nose tucked under her paw. But sleep never fully claimed her, some part of her brain always listening, always alert. A scent drifted through the crack beneath the door. Wrong, foreign, dangerous. Shadow's head lifted, her nostrils flared. The hackles along her spine rose like a dark wave. She knew this smell. The man from the supermarket, the one who made Elena's heart race with fear. A low growl rumbled from her chest. Rosie stirred, blinked awake. Shadow? What's wrong? The dog stood, padding silently to the door. She scratched once, then looked back at Rosie with urgent eyes. Rosie didn't hesitate. She slipped out of bed, small feet silent on the cold floor, and eased the door open. Shadow moved into the hallway like smoke. Rosie followed. The stairs were dark. Moonlight filtered through tall windows, casting silver rectangles across the marble floor below. Shadow descended without a sound, Rosie's hand resting on her back for guidance. They moved together, girl and dog, hunter and tracker. At the bottom of the stairs, Shadow stopped. Rosie peered around the corner. A figure crept down the hallway toward her mother's room, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the careful stealth of someone who didn't belong. Derek. Rosie's blood turned to ice, but she didn't run, didn't scream. She watched, and then she saw something else. At the back entrance, a second figure stood silhouetted against the night, blonde hair catching the moonlight, designer robe wrapped around a familiar frame. Vanessa. She was pointing, directing, showing Derek which way to go. Shadow exploded. The bark shattered the silence like a gunshot, fierce, furious, deafening. She lunged toward Derek, teeth bared, every muscle coiled to attack. Lights blazed on throughout the mansion. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs in seconds, gun drawn, eyes sharp as broken glass. Marco flanked him, weapon ready. Derek froze mid-step, hands shooting up, Wait, Vanessa stumbled forward from the back door, face arranged in theatrical shock. Marcus! Oh my God. I heard a noise and I came to investigate, and this man was just… She let him in. Every head turned toward Rosie. The girl stood at the base of the stairs, shadow pressed against her legs. Her voice was calm, too calm for a 6-year-old witnessing chaos. I saw her, Rosie continued. She opened the door. She showed him where to go. Vanessa's mask cracked. That's ridiculous. She's a child. She was dreaming, I wasn't dreaming. Rosie's dark eyes fixed on Vanessa with unnerving steadiness. Shadow woke me up. I followed her. I saw everything. Marcus looked at Vanessa, then at Derek, then at Marco. The cameras, he said quietly. Pull the footage. Now. The footage was damning. 3 meetings at a downtown diner. Vanessa passing an envelope to Derek. Phone records showing dozens of calls between them over the past month. The car crash. The necklace. Derek appearing at the supermarket. All of it orchestrated by the woman who had shared Marcus's bed for 2 years. Vanessa knelt in the foyer. Makeup ruined by tears. Mascara streaking down her cheeks like black rivers. I can explain no. Marcus's voice was ice. You can't. I did it for us. That woman was coming between us. There was no us. He turned away from her. There never was. Marco's men dragged Derek toward the door. Another team flanked Vanessa, gripping her arms. She twisted, fighting their hold, her face contorting with rage. You'll regret this, she screamed. You chose a housekeeper over me? A nobody? You'll pay for this, Marcus. You'll all pay. The door slammed shut behind her. Silence fell over the mansion. Rosie stood with Shadow, watching the empty doorway. Elena rushed down the stairs, gathering her daughter into her arms, trembling with relief. Marcus holstered his gun. His eyes found Rosie small, brave, impossibly steady. Thank you, he said quietly. Again, Rosie shrugged, one hand resting on Shadow's head. Shadow did it. I just followed. But Marcus knew better. The dog had the instincts. The girl had the courage. Together, they had saved his household again. 1 month passed. The mansion had never been quieter or warmer. The tension that had coiled through every hallway dissolved like morning fog. The staff moved more easily. Laughter echoed in places where only whispers had lived before. And the dining table now held 4. Elena no longer ate in the kitchen after serving. She sat at the main table with Marcus and the girls, passing bread and pouring juice like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she belonged there. More potatoes, please, Lily announced, holding up her plate with both hands. Magic word, Elena reminded her. More potatoes. Pretty please with a cherry. Rosie giggled. Marcus's lips twitched the closest thing to a smile he allowed himself in front of others. He was changing. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. He came home earlier now, before 6, instead of after midnight. He read bedtime stories to Lily, doing all the voices, even the silly dragon that made her laugh until she hiccuped. He taught Rosie chess, patient as stone when she knocked over pieces or forgot how knights moved. You're getting better, he told her after their 3rd game. I still can't beat you. That's not the point. The point is you're thinking further ahead each time. Rosie considered this seriously. Like Shadow when she hunts? Exactly like that. Lily and Rosie now shared a room. It had been their idea, whispered requests, pleading eyes, promises to keep quiet at night. Marcus had agreed within seconds. He would have agreed to almost anything that made Lily smile like that. Now, standing in the doorway at 10 o'clock, he watched them sleep. Lily sprawled across her side of the bed, blonde curls everywhere, one arm flung over her head. Rosie curled tighter, knees drawn up, dark hair fanned across her pillow. And between them, like a furry guardian, lay Shadow. The dog's amber eyes reflected the hallway light half open, ever watchful, even in sleep. Something shifted in Marcus's chest, a crack in the armor he had worn for so long. This is what family looks like, he thought. He hadn't known, he remembered. Soft footsteps approached behind him. He didn't turn, but he knew who it was. Her scent had become familiar, lavender soap and kitchen warmth. Elena stopped beside him, looking at the sleeping children. Thank you, she said quietly, for believing me, when no one else would have. Marcus didn't turn. I'm not good at trusting people. I know, but your daughter… He paused, searching for words that didn't come easily. And that dog… They made me see differently. Elena smiled softly. Rosie always says Shadow hears what adults can't hear. Now Marcus turned. His eyes met hers in the dim light. Maybe I need to learn to listen like a dog. Elena laughed soft, surprised, genuine. It was the first time she had laughed in his presence without fear or caution. He found himself almost smiling back. No more boss and servant, no more walls and distance. Just two people standing in a doorway, watching children sleep, sharing something neither could name. But across the city, darkness gathered. In a warehouse that smelled of rust and old blood, Vanessa Cole sat at a metal table. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by something simpler. Her perfect hair hung limp. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but the hatred in them burned brighter than ever. Across from her sat a man who made grown criminals weep. Viktor Resnick, 45 years old, scar running from his left eye to his jaw, a souvenir from a knife fight he had won by biting out his opponent's throat. He controlled the west side of Boston with an iron fist wrapped in barbed wire. He had hated Marcus Thorne for 5 years. "You say you know his weaknesses," Viktor said, his voice like gravel scraping glass. Vanessa leaned forward. "I lived in that house for 2 years. I know the security rotations, the blind spots, the codes, and..." Her lips curved into something too sharp to be a smile. "I know what he loves now. A housekeeper and her daughter. A little girl and a dog." She laughed bitterly. "Take them, and Marcus Thorne will crumble." Viktor studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled a cold, "Terrible, tell me everything." Viktor Resnick had built his empire on bones. For 15 years, he had controlled West Boston with brutal efficiency. Drug routes, protection rackets, underground gambling, anything that bled money flowed through his hands. He was not a subtle man. Where Marcus Thorne used strategy and precision, Viktor used fear and violence. His signature was the scar he left on enemies who crossed him, a deep slash from eye to jaw, matching his own. For 5 years, he and Marcus had circled each other like wolves disputing territory, neither strong enough to destroy the other, neither willing to surrender ground. But Viktor had a wound that wouldn't heal. His son, Alexei, 19 years old, killed in a crossfire 2 years ago during a turf war at the docks. The bullet hadn't come from Marcus's gun, but Marcus's men had been there, and in Viktor's mind, that was enough. Marcus Thorne had taken his boy. Now Viktor would take everything Marcus loved. The warehouse reeked of cigarette smoke and old oil. Vanessa sat across from Viktor, her manicured nails tapping the metal table. She had traded her designer wardrobe for something darker, fitted black, practical shoes. The softness was gone from her face, replaced by something hard and hungry. "The girl is the key," she said. "Lily, Marcus would burn the world for her." Viktor nodded slowly. "And the others?" "The housekeeper, Elena, and her daughter, Rosie." Vanessa's voice dripped venom. "He chose them over me, made me look like a fool in front of everyone. So you want them hurt. I want them to suffer." She leaned forward. "Take all 3. Make Marcus watch. Then take everything else." Viktor considered. He didn't care about Vanessa's wounded pride, but her information was valuable: security codes, patrol schedules, blind spots she had memorized during 2 years of playing house. "The dog," he said. Vanessa mentioned a dog, German Shepherd, young, but aggressive. "It guards the children." Viktor smiled coldly. "Dogs can be handled." He stood, signaling the meeting was over. 3 days, he said. "We move in 3 days." Miles away, Marcus sat in his study reviewing intelligence reports. The words blurred together: shipment movements, territory disputes, alliance shifts. But one name appeared too often: Viktor Resnick. Marco stood at attention by the door. "He's recruiting," Marco said grimly. "New muscle. Hired guns from out of state. This isn't normal business." Marcus set down the report. "He's planning something. The anniversary is next week. 2 years since his son died." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He hadn't ordered Alexei's death. The boy had been in the wrong place, caught between crossfire neither side could stop. But Viktor didn't want truth. He wanted blood. "Double the security rotation," Marcus ordered. "No one enters or leaves without clearance, and I want eyes on Viktor's warehouse around the clock." Marco nodded and left. Marcus sat alone in the dim light, weight pressing down on his shoulders like iron chains. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Elena stood in the doorway, concern etched across her face. "The staff is nervous," she said quietly. "They feel something's wrong." She stepped closer. "What's happening?" "Marcus?" He looked at her, really looked. The woman who had survived Derek's fists, who had protected her daughter through years of darkness, who didn't flinch from hard truths. "My work is complicated," he said slowly. "There are people who want to hurt me, and they might try to hurt the people close to me to do it." Elena didn't back away, didn't tremble. She had lived with violence too long to be frightened by warnings. "What do you need me to do?" Marcus studied her face. No panic. No hesitation. Just steady, quiet strength. He rose and crossed to her, stopping close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "Keep the children close," he said softly. "Don't trust anyone I haven't cleared. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you find me immediately." Elena nodded once. "I will." For a moment, they stood in silence. Two people bound by something stronger than words. Then Marcus turned back to his desk, and Elena slipped away to guard what mattered most. Neither knew that 3 days was already too long. Victor Resnick was not a man who forgave. He ruled West Boston the way hurricanes ruled coastlines, through destruction, through fear, through the certainty that resistance meant death. For 15 years, his name had been whispered in alleys and screamed in basements where enemies learned the cost of defiance. Where Marcus Thorne built power through strategy and precision, Victor built his through brutality. His signature calling card was a scar slashed from eye to jaw on anyone who betrayed him, a permanent mark matching the one he wore himself. For 5 years, these two empires had ground against each other like tectonic plates. Neither could destroy the other. Neither would yield. But Victor carried a wound that strategy couldn't heal. Alexei, his only son, 19 years old when a bullet found him during a dock war 2 years ago. The shot hadn't come from Marcus's gun. Victor knew this. But Marcus's men had been there. Marcus's orders had started the fight. In Victor's heart, that was enough. The warehouse smelled of rust and old violence. Vanessa sat across from Victor, her designer elegance stripped away, replaced by something sharper and darker. Hatred had carved new lines into her face. "The daughter first," she said. "Lily. She's Marcus's whole world." Victor nodded slowly, fingers tracing the edge of his scar. "And the housekeeper, Elena Harper, and her brat." Vanessa's voice turned to acid. "He threw me away for them, made me look like garbage. So this is revenge. This is justice." She leaned forward. "Take all 3. Let Marcus feel what it's like to lose everything." Victor studied her. He cared nothing for her wounded pride. But her knowledge, security, rotations, camera blind spots, access codes, that was valuable. "The dog?" he said. "There's a dog, German Shepherd, protective, stays close to the children." Victor smiled a cold, empty thing. Dogs die easily. He stood, signaling the end of discussion. 3 days. We move at dawn." Across the city, Marcus sat in his study, shadows pooling around him. Intelligence reports covered his desk: shipping routes, territory movements, financial transfers. But one pattern emerged like blood through bandages. Victor Resnick was gathering forces. Marco stood rigid by the door. "He's recruiting outside talent. Mercenaries. This isn't routine business." Marcus set down the file. "The anniversary. 2 years since Alexei. He blames you." "I know what he blames me for." Marcus stared at the reports without seeing them. He had not ordered that boy's death, but in this world, truth mattered less than perception. Victor believed Marcus had killed his son. Belief was enough. "Triple the perimeter guards," Marcus ordered. "No deliveries without inspection. I want surveillance on Victor's warehouse every hour." Marco nodded and departed. Silence returned, heavy, suffocating. A soft knock broke through. Elena stood in the doorway, concern shadowing her features. "The house feels different. The staff is nervous." She stepped closer. "What's happening?" Marcus looked at her. This woman who had survived horrors and emerged unbroken, who faced each day with quiet courage. "My business creates enemies," he said carefully. "One of them may be planning something." Elena didn't flinch, didn't retreat. Violence held no surprise for her anymore. "What do you need from me?" Marcus rose and crossed toward her, stopping close enough to see the strength in her eyes. "Keep the children close. Don't trust anyone outside my circle." His voice softened. "If anything feels wrong, find me. Immediately." Elena held his gaze. "I will." For a moment, they stood in the dim light, two people shaped by darkness, learning to trust. Then Marcus returned to his desk, and Elena disappeared to guard what mattered most. Neither knew that 3 days had already become 2. The morning began like any other. Sunlight filtered through the autumn leaves as Elena walked toward the park with Lily and Rosie on either side. Shadow trotted ahead, nose sampling the crisp November air, tail swaying contentedly. Behind them, a security guard followed at a respectful distance, close enough to respond, far enough not to intrude. "Can we feed the ducks?" Lily asked, skipping over cracks in the sidewalk. "If they're hungry," Elena smiled. "Ducks are always hungry," Rosie said matter-of-factly. "Shadow told me." Elena laughed softly. These ordinary moments, walks in the park, silly conversations. Children's laughter felt like treasures now. After everything that had happened, peace was something she never took for granted. She didn't notice the black van parked at the corner, didn't see the men watching from behind tinted windows, didn't know that Vanessa had provided every detail: the route, the timing, the single guard trailing 50 feet behind. They reached the park entrance. Shadow's ears suddenly flattened. A growl rumbled from her chest. Elena froze. Shadow? What tires screamed? The black van exploded from the curb, cutting across the sidewalk, blocking the path. Doors flew open. Men in dark clothes poured out 4, 5, 6, moving with military precision. The security guard reached for his weapon. A silenced shot dropped him before his hand touched the holster. Elena's body moved before her mind caught up. She grabbed both girls, pulling them behind her, shielding them with her own flesh. Stay behind me. Shadow launched herself at the nearest attacker, a blur of fur and fury, teeth sinking into his forearm. The man screamed. Another man swung a heavy boot. It connected with Shadow's ribs, a sickening crack. The dog yelped and crumpled to the ground. Shadow! Rosie's scream tore through the air. Elena tried to run. Hands grabbed her arms. Another man seized Lily, lifting her, kicking and screaming. A third grabbed Rosie as she fought toward her fallen dog. No, let us go! Shadow! Elena thrashed wildly, scratching, biting, but there were too many, too strong. They dragged her toward the van's open door. In the chaos, she caught one last glimpse of Shadow lying on the grass, sides heaving, blood matting her dark fur. Then the van door slammed shut. Inside the van, Elena clutched both girls to her chest. Lily sobbed against her shoulder. Rosie sat rigid, silent tears streaming down her face, eyes fixed on nothing. The van lurched into motion. A figure in the passenger seat turned around. Vanessa. Her smile was cold, triumphant, ugly. Hello again, Elena. Her voice dripped with poisoned honey. No security this time. No dog to save you. She laughed softly. Just you and me. And a very long conversation ahead. Elena said nothing. She held the girls tighter, her heart pounding against her ribs. Rosie's small hand found hers and squeezed. Shadow will come, Rosie whispered, so quietly only Elena could hear. She always comes. Elena didn't know if she believed it, but she held on to that whisper like a lifeline. At the mansion, Marcus was reviewing contracts when Marco burst through the door. No knock, no announcement. Marcus looked up and saw the color drained from his lieutenant's face. They took them, Marco said hoarsely. Elena, both girls. The guard is dead. Marcus went still, completely, utterly still. The pen dropped from his fingers. His vision narrowed to a single point. For the first time in his life, Marcus Thorne felt something crack inside him. Where? The word came out like broken glass. We don't know yet. But Marco hesitated. There's something else. They found Shadow at the park entrance. One of the groundskeepers had spotted her dragging herself toward the mansion gates, blood trailing behind her. Marcus moved without thinking out of the study, down the stairs, across the grounds. He found her at the corner of the garden, collapsed but conscious, ribs cracked, blood staining her muzzle. But those those eyes were open, fixed on the direction the van had gone. Still watching, still waiting, still ready. Marcus knelt beside her. Can you find them? He asked quietly. Shadow's tail moved once, weak but certain, and in that moment, hope flickered in the darkness. The warehouse smelled of rust and decay. Elena sat on the cold concrete floor, wrists bound with coarse rope, back pressed against a crumbling wall. Lily huddled on her left, Rosie on her right, both children pale and trembling. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows across the abandoned space. Water stains crawled down the walls. Somewhere in the darkness, rats skittered. Hours had passed since the van had dumped them here. Hours of silence, of fear, of waiting. Then the metal door groaned open. Victor Resnick stepped through. He was taller than Elena had imagined, broad-shouldered, moving with the easy confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. The scar running from his eye to his jaw caught the dim light, a permanent testament to the violence that had shaped him. His eyes found Elena, cold, empty, amused. So this is Marcus Thorne's weakness. Victor's voice rumbled like distant thunder. A housekeeper and 2 little girls. He laughed low, humorless. I expected more. Elena forced herself to her feet, stepping in front of the children despite her bound hands. Her shoulder still ached from the crash weeks ago. Her heart hammered against her ribs. But she didn't cower. They're just children, she said, voice steady. Whatever you want from Marcus, use me. Let them go. Victor tilted his head, studying her like something mildly interesting. Touching, he said. But no. Footsteps clicked behind him. Vanessa emerged from the shadows, her face twisted with satisfaction. She walked directly to Elena and stopped inches away. Remember me? Before Elena could respond, Vanessa's hand cracked across her face. Pain exploded through Elena's cheek. She stumbled but didn't fall. You took everything from me, Vanessa hissed. My place, my future, my life. Another slap. Harder. Now I take everything from you. Elena tasted blood, but she didn't look away. Behind her, Lily whimpered. Elena shifted, blocking the children from Vanessa's view. Brave, Vanessa sneered. Stupid, but brave. Rosie's voice cut through the tension, small but impossibly steady. Shadow will find us. Vanessa turned, eyebrow raised. What did you say? Shadow? Rosie met her gaze without flinching. She'll find us. She always does. For a moment, something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. Then she laughed harsh and mocking. That crippled dog? She's lying dead in the park where we left her. Vanessa crouched to Rosie's level, smiling cruelly. No one's coming for you, little girl. Not your dog. Not your hero. No one. Rosie said nothing, just stared at Vanessa with those dark, unreadable eyes. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and nodded to his men. Watch them, he ordered. Marcus will receive our demands within the hour. He walked out. Vanessa followed, heels clicking against concrete, laughter echoing behind her. The door slammed shut. Silence returned. Lily burst into tears, great, gasping sobs that shook her small body. Elena dropped to her knees, pulling both girls into her arms despite the rope cutting into her wrists. Shh, shh. It's okay. We're going to be okay. I want Daddy, Lily cried. I want to go home. He's coming. Elena pressed her lips to Lily's hair. Your daddy will find us. I promise. Rosie leaned close to Elena's ear. Her whisper was barely a breath. Shadow isn't dead, Mommy. I know she isn't. Elena held her daughter tighter. She didn't know if it was true. Didn't know if hope was wisdom or foolishness. But she chose to believe. Because in darkness this deep, faith was the only light they had. The mansion had become a war room. Maps covered every surface. Phones rang without pause. Men moved through hallways with weapons visible and faces grim. Marcus stood at the center of the chaos, barking orders, demanding updates, burning through every resource he possessed. But Victor had planned well. No witnesses, no camera footage, no trail. 3 hours since the kidnapping, and they had nothing. Check the warehouses again. Marcus growled into his phone. Every one Victor has touched in the last 5 years. Sir, there are dozens. Then search dozens. He slammed the phone down. His hands trembled not with fear, but with rage so pure it felt like fire in his veins. Lily, Elena, Rosie, gone. Marco appeared in the doorway. Sir, the veterinarian is finished. Marcus moved without a word. They had set up a makeshift clinic in the garage, clean sheets spread across a workbench, medical supplies scattered nearby. A gray-haired veterinarian packed his bag while a young assistant cleaned bloodied instruments. On the table lay Shadow. The dog's ribs were wrapped in white bandages, already spotted with red. Her breathing came shallow and labored. Her dark fur was matted with dried blood and dirt. But her eyes, those amber eyes, were open, watching Marcus as he approached. 3 cracked ribs, the veterinarian reported quietly. Internal bruising. She shouldn't be moved for at least a week. Marcus barely heard him. He stared at Shadow, remembering another night, a Halloween festival, a missing child, a 6-year-old girl who said her dog could find anyone. Can you find them? He asked softly. Shadow's ears twitched. Sir? Marco frowned. Marcus ignored him. He walked closer, crouching beside the wounded dog. They have Rosie, he said, voice barely above a whisper. They have Lily. Can you find them? Shadow lifted her head. The movement cost her a soft whimper escaped her throat. But those golden eyes locked onto Marcus with fierce, unwavering focus. The same look she'd worn the night she found Lily. Marcus turned to Marco. Bring me something from Rosie's room. A shirt. Something she wore recently. Sir, the dog can barely stand. This dog found my daughter when 12 trained men failed. Marcus's voice cut like steel. Bring me the shirt. Marco hesitated only a second. Then he was gone. Minutes later, he returned with a small purple sweater, the one Rosie had worn 2 days ago. Marcus took it and held it beneath Shadow's nose. The dog inhaled. Once, twice. Something changed in her posture. Despite the pain, despite the bandages, her body tensed with purpose. Her nostrils flared rapidly. She had the scent. Slowly, agonizingly, Shadow pushed herself upright. Her legs shook. Her breathing turned ragged. Blood seeped fresh through the white wrappings. But she stood. "This is insane," Marco muttered. "She'll collapse before we reach the gate." Marcus watched Shadow take her first step, then another. Unsteady, painful, but determined. "She won't stop," Marcus said quietly. "Not until she finds them." He remembered Rosie's words from months ago. Shadow doesn't give up, and she doesn't lie. The dog moved toward the garage door, nose working the air, each step a small victory against impossible odds. Her body screamed to rest. Her instincts screamed louder. Find them. Protect them. Bring them home. Marcus fell into step behind her. No skepticism this time. No hesitation. Just a man following a wounded dog into the darkness because faith, sometimes, was the only weapon that mattered. Shadow turned west. Toward the old industrial district. Toward Victor's territory. Toward home. Shadow moved through the night like a ghost. Her paws dragged against the pavement. Her bandages had turned dark with fresh blood. Each breath rattled in her damaged ribs, but her nose never stopped working, sampling the air, filtering through 1,000 scents, following the one that mattered. Marcus walked beside her, gun drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. Behind them, Marco and 6 armed men followed in tactical formation. They passed through neighborhoods Marcus rarely saw, boarded-up storefronts, broken streetlights, alleys that swallowed light whole. The deeper they went into West Boston, the closer they moved to Victor's territory. Shadow stopped at an intersection. Her head swung left, then right. A whimper escaped her throat, the pain catching up. "Easy," Marcus murmured. "Take your time." The dog inhaled deeply, then turned left, pulling toward the old industrial district, where rusted factories stood like tombstones of a dead economy. 3 more blocks. 4. 5. Finally, Shadow stopped before a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Behind it, a crumbling warehouse loomed against the night sky. Dim light glowed from a single window. Shadow sat. Her amber eyes found Marcus exhausted, bleeding, but absolutely certain. "They're here," Marcus signaled his men. The assault began without warning. Marco's team cut through the fence. Flashbangs shattered windows. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions as Victor's guards scrambled to respond. Inside the holding room, Elena heard the explosions. She grabbed both girls, dragging them to the far corner. "Get down!" She pressed them against the wall, shielding them with her body. "Cover your ears. Don't look," Lily sobbed. Rosie squeezed her eyes shut, hands clamped over her ears. The door burst open. Victor stormed in, gun drawn, face twisted with fury. Behind him, Vanessa scrambled, mascara streaking her cheeks. "He found us," Vanessa shrieked. "How did he?" Victor grabbed Lily, yanking her from Elena's arms before she could react. He pressed the gun against the child's temple. "No!" Elena lunged forward, but one of Victor's men caught her, throwing her to the ground. Victor backed toward the rear exit, Lily squirming in his grip. Her screams pierced the chaos. "Daddy! Daddy!" Marcus appeared in the doorway, weapon raised. He saw Lily, saw the gun against her head, saw Victor's finger hovering over the trigger. He froze. Everything he had built, power, empire, control, meant nothing. None of it could stop a bullet already chambered. "Put it down, Thorne." Victor's voice was ice. "Or your daughter dies like my son did." Marcus's hand trembled. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. "Drop it. Now." Slowly, agonizingly, Marcus lowered his gun. Victor smiled. Then Rosie moved. She had crawled to the doorway, unnoticed in the chaos, and standing behind her, barely visible in the shadows, was Shadow, bloodied, broken, but still standing. "Shadow," Rosie's whisper cut through the noise like a blade. "Attack!" The dog exploded forward. 100 pounds of muscle and fury launched across the room. Victor spun too late. Shadow's jaws clamped down on his gun hand with crushing force. Victor screamed. The gun clattered to the floor. Lily fell free. Marcus fired. The shot caught Victor in the chest. He staggered backward, eyes wide with shock, and collapsed against the wall. Silence. Then Lily's cry, "Daddy!" Marcus dropped his weapon and ran to his daughter, scooping her into his arms, pressing her against his chest. "I've got you. I've got you. It's over." Shadow released Victor's arm and staggered sideways. Her legs buckled. She collapsed onto the concrete, breathing heavy, amber eyes finally closing. Rosie rushed to her, dropping to her knees, small hands cradling the dog's bloodied head. "Shadow, Shadow, wake up." The dog's tail moved once, weak but alive. And in the chaos and the gun smoke, victory settled over the warehouse like dawn breaking through clouds. Viktor Resnick lay motionless on the warehouse floor. His empire died with him, scattered like ashes in the wind. His men either surrendered with hands raised or fled into the night, swallowed by the darkness they had once commanded. It was over, but not for everyone. Vanessa scrambled toward the back exit, heels scraping against concrete, designer clothes torn and filthy. She almost reached the door when Marco stepped from the shadows, blocking her path. Going somewhere? She spun, trapped. Her eyes found Marcus across the room. The mask crumbled. "Marcus!" She stumbled toward him, tears streaming down her face. "Please, you have to understand, I love you. Everything I did was for us. I just wanted to be with you." Marcus looked at her, the woman he had shared his bed with for 2 years, the woman who had smiled at his daughter while plotting to destroy everything he loved. His eyes held nothing, no anger, no hatred, just emptiness. "You gave my daughter to my enemy." His voice was quiet, cold as the grave. "You put a gun to her head. You are not worthy of my gaze." Vanessa's sobs turned hysterical. "Please, I made a mistake, I can explain." Marcus turned away. "Marco, handle it." 2 of Marcus's men seized Vanessa's arms. She screamed, thrashed, begged, but they dragged her toward the waiting police cars outside. Officers Marcus had trusted for years. Officers who knew what to do with people who crossed certain lines. Her screams faded into the night. Silence settled over the warehouse. Elena stood near the wall, Lily clinging to her neck. Rosie pressed against her side. Shadow lay at their feet, each breath a battle. But her amber eyes stayed open, watching, guarding. Even now, Marcus walked toward them. He stopped, looked at the 3 faces before him, exhausted, frightened, but alive. All alive. Then Marcus Thorne did something he had never done before. He knelt, right there on the blood-stained concrete. The most powerful man in Boston lowered himself to eye level with a 6-year-old girl. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Again. You saved them. You saved everything." Rosie shook her head, her small hand resting on Shadow's matted fur. "Shadow did it. I just told her where to go." Marcus looked at the dog ribs wrapped in bloody bandages, body trembling with exhaustion, tail still managing one weak wag. "I know," he said softly. "I know." Lily squirmed free from Elena's arms. "Daddy!" She launched herself at Marcus, small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate strength. He caught her, pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and for the first time in years, perhaps for the first time since his wife died, tears rolled down Marcus Thorne's face. He didn't hide them, didn't wipe them away. He just held his daughter and let himself feel. Elena watched from a few steps away, Rosie's hand in hers, uncertain where she belonged in this moment. This was Marcus and his daughter, his family, his world. She started to step back. "Elena," she stopped. Marcus looked up at her. Lily still clutched to his chest. His eyes were red, his face wet, his armor completely shattered. He extended his free hand toward her. "Come here." Elena hesitated. Her heart pounded. Every instinct told her she didn't belong. She was just the housekeeper. Just the help. "Just please," Marcus said quietly. "Come here." She moved forward, took his hand, let him pull her into the embrace until all 4 of them stood together, Marcus, Elena, Lily, Rosie, and at their feet, Shadow's tail wagged once more, weak, exhausted, but content. Dear friends, if this moment touched your heart, please take a second to hit the subscribe button below. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear a story about courage, loyalty, and the power of believing in those the world overlooks. This story reminds us of something beautiful. Real strength is not measured by power or wealth. Sometimes the bravest heart beats inside a wounded dog who refuses to give up. Sometimes the wisest voice belongs to a 6-year-old girl who trusts what she cannot see. What did this story mean to you? Have you ever been saved by someone unexpected? Have you ever found family in places you never imagined? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your stories inspire us more than you know. We wish you good health, happiness, and peace in your daily life. May you always find your shadow, that loyal soul who stands beside you when darkness falls. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now, and we will see you in the next video.